Hi, this is just a short video to run through the steps in the creation of the pulley part, which is part of the flat pulley assembly. So I've gone ahead and I've created a new part file and I've saved it into a folder with all of the parts for the pulley assembly. I've also used the snipping tool just to take a quick little snip of the profile of this pulley part, and I'm just going to simply copy that and then use Ctrl and V to paste it into my working area. So this part we're going to create it using a revolve feature. We're going to essentially sketch part of the profile of this and revolve it around an axis of rotation. So what I'll do, I'm going to sketch this on the front plane as the orientation of the finished part in the final assembly lends itself to sketching it on the front plane. I'm also going to create it with a center line running through here, and I'll position the center line at the origin. That will then leave the origin of the finished part at the center of rotation of the pulley part. So I'll create a new sketch on the front plane. So I'll highlight the front plane, create a new sketch, and I'm going to start with that center line. So I'll do the center line from the origin, and as I said, that then will leave the origin of our part here at the center. I'm going to use the line tool then to just sketch out this profile. So I can select it up here in the toolbar, or I can hold the right mouse button and go left to get the line tool. And I'll start with that line just directly over the origin here. And I'll rough out the basic shape of the, just Ctrl Z to undo there. I'll rough out the basic shape of the profile, not being too worried at this stage about dimensions. You can see though that Solidworks is putting in relations on each of these lines to make them horizontal or vertical. So that's the basic shape roughed out there. We can add more relations and we can add dimensions to fully define it to this shape here. So I can use the Smart Dimension tool, or the shortcut for that is right mouse button and up. So I'll start with these horizontal dimensions. So I want a dimension between the extremities of it of 50 millimeters, and this top part here is 36, and the narrowest part of it here is 16. Okay. Now you can see that as I added those dimensions, it moves around the shape of the sketch, but it hasn't moved things equally. So we still don't have any relations making this symmetrical. There are a couple of things I could do. What we've done in previous exercises, we've maybe put a center line in, going from midpoint to midpoint, and make things symmetrical about that center line. And that would be a valid way to go about it. There are other things you can do though that will vary from situation to situation. In this case here, what I might want to do is take these two lines, so Control click to select both lines. If I made these two lines of equal length, then that will center this on this part of the sketch for me. Okay. Now you'll notice if I move one side of this here, the other side doesn't move with it. So what I'll also do, and what you could probably do both of these at the same time, is I'm going to make them equal, but I'm also going to make them collinear with each other. And what that will do now, you see this dashed line across here, the collinear relation between them will make them move together as one. So I need only dimension one of them, and the other side will be dimensioned as well. Now, what's happened here is oh no, that's okay. So I'll do the same thing for these bottom two lines here. I'll take this line and this line. I'm going to make those collinear, and I'm also going to make those equal in length as well. So that will center the part. And my whole sketch is free to move left to right. So what I want to do as well is I want to take let's say I'll take this bottom corner and I'll take the origin, and I'm going to put in a vertical relation between those there. So now my part is kind of fixed left to right. When I put in my diameter dimensions, then it'll fully define it in the vertical direction as well. Okay, so I'll go back to the Smart Dimension tool. I'm going to start adding in some diameter dimensions. So the external diameter is 80. So I'm going to dimension from the top to the center line, and that would put in a radius dimension. Actually, I'll start from the bottom up. Might be better. So I'll put in the diameter 12, diameter 24. So dimension from the line to the center line, that would give you a radius dimension if you move the mouse up above the line, or if you move the mouse below, it'll give you a diameter dimension. So I want that to be diameter 12 to there, diameter 24 to here, and a diameter 70 to here, and a diameter 80 to the outside. Okay, and now my sketch is fully defined. So only when your sketch is fully defined, and you can see that down here below, and also you can see that all of the entities in my sketch are in black. Only when it's fully defined will I close out of the sketch. And I'm going to now use the Revolve Boss Base feature here. So I'll make sure that I have the sketch highlighted, and I'll click on the Revolve Boss Base feature. So what it's done is it's detected that I have an axis of revolution, or that center line in my sketch, but you could always manually add that in by picking the center line for axis of revolution and picking a contour or an area that you want to rotate. Okay, but by default it should pick the axis of revolution and the contour for you if you have the sketch highlighted in advance. Okay, so that has created the 3D part for me, and the origin of that part, when we go to assemble it, will be here where the origin of that sketch was. Okay, so that's most of the work done. We need to add in the 6 holes rotated or patterned around the outside of this here. So I'm just going to pause the recording for a second and get use the snipping tool to get a snapshot of the sketch in there. Okay, so I've just copy and pasted the dimensions for the patterned holes into my working area again, same as before. So I'll just reorientate this back to the standard view to get an idea of where I'm looking at. Okay, so I'm going to draw on this face here one of these holes and then pattern it around. I'm simply going to use the cut extrude feature here, but you could also use the hole wizard for a similar result. So I want to create a new sketch on this plane here. So I can highlight that face first of all, then go to sketch and create a new sketch, and then space bar normal to rotate the part around so I'm looking directly in at it. Now I want to create one of these holes. It doesn't really matter which, but I'll take the one directly above the origin. So I'm just going to draw a circle, and then that circle is free to move, but I'm going to control click on the origin and put in a vertical relation between those there. So what we want is 6 holes patterned around a pitch circle with radius 25. So I could create a construction circle made out of construction lines, but actually all I really need is to dimension one of these circles 25 at a radius 25 away from the origin here. So I'll use Smart Dimension from the origin to the center of 25. And I also want to dimension the circle itself to be diameter 10. Okay, and because I've put in that vertical relation there, my sketch is now fully defined. So I'll close out of that sketch. I'm going to use that sketch to create a feature, an extruded cut feature. Now, with that set to blind and a distance of 10, it's probably not actually protruding the whole way through the part. So what I'm going to do is change that. It's going to extrude from the sketch plane, so from that face where we drew the sketch, and I want to change it from blind to through all. So that means it will just keep projecting right the way through the part up to any distance. So even if the part changes size, this hole will always cut right the way through. I'll OK that. So that gives us one hole cut through this part. I'm going to then take that whole feature, that cut extrude feature, highlight it over here, and I'm going to go up to the pattern in the ribbon up here. But instead of a linear pattern, we want to change that to a circular pattern. Now the circular pattern is going to pattern that feature around in a circle, obviously, but it needs an axis. So if you hover your mouse over this here, it'll look for an axis of rotation or revolution. We can pick any circular feature that's concentric with the pattern, with the circle we want to pattern on. So I'm going to pick this inside hole here, but you could equally pick any circular feature. So that gives us a center for the circular pattern. What we want is we want 6 instances, and by default it's set to an instance spacing, so it's on 6 instances 15 degrees apart. What we can do is change that to 6 instances equally spaced around a total angle of 360 degrees. So I'll set that to equal spacing, 360 degrees, and 6 instances. And the feature that it's going to pattern is that cut extrude feature. I'll OK that. And that now is the completed part. I could also specify a material at this stage here, so I might do that. I'm going to edit the material, and we'll pick a polymer material, let's say nylon 6, for example. Okay, so that doesn't really change the appearance of it much, but it will change the appearance of this in a sectional view. It'll have a different type of hatching. So the different type of material has some implications later on. Okay, we'll leave it at that for now for the flat pulley part. So I'm just going to save this, and I'll finish up the recording at that.